Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Selage here, and today we're going to be walking step by step on how to create your own tile frenzy in the typical fashion that I usually build mine in, which is using devices and triggers to enable and disable the visibility and stuff. We're going to walk through all that in today's video. Now I also have a map that is going to be having all the mechanics and everything we do in today's video. The code is at the top of the screen now, and I'll also have it down in the description. Now the first thing is there are a couple of different things you can use for targets. I usually use the tomato head as it gives a nice round and a red texture. Otherwise you can always use the blue or these power-ups that you can actually change the color from to a bunch of different colors. It's pretty cool. Different ones give you different choices on size and such, but for this video we're going to be going with the tomato head. We're going to start off with the RNG device before we go on to anything else. We're going to have 3 of these because we're going to have 3 targets on the screen at once. Now, depending on how many targets you want to do, you're just going to have to do more RNG devices, which is pretty easy because you can just copy and paste them. So if you want to do 6 targets, you're going to do 6 RNG devices. If you want to do 1 target, you're only going to do 1, etc, etc. So let's hop into changing these settings up. Right, so the first setting we're going to change is this value limit 2. Now, this is how many targets you want overall in this section. So I want to do 30, and since we have 3 RNG devices, I'm going to make this 10. Next, we're going to do winning value. So we're going to make this 0. That way, no matter what this RNG device rolls, it's always going to give us an output within our parameters. Next, our roll time, we're going to make this instant. That way, it's always going to be giving us a target on screen. Now, next, make sure this is very important to turn on pick each number once. Otherwise, there's a chance you're going to get repeating target numbers, and then that target is just going to stay up on screen and it's not going to give you a new one, and it's going to seem like your map is glitching. So I like to choose it for reset on round start, because sometimes in my maps I reset it right on the round, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's on either of these. Next, we're going to do zone, and we're going to do it forward. The length, I like to match my length to my value limit 2. That way, let's see here, you can see, it's glitched. All right, we're gonna quickly cut this and move it over 1. There we go, not fixes. So these white lines are values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it's gonna split it perfectly, and it's just easier for troubleshooting and looking at problems within it. Now let's hop back in here and see if we have everything set. Now I don't want the audio playing because it does get kind of annoying for me. And then activate on game phase, we're gonna make this activate on game start. That way it's gonna give us a random start of targets on our screen, and it's not gonna be the same 3 every time. And then as well, we're gonna do activate. This one is gonna be activate on channel 1. Now I'm just gonna drag this over a couple, and I'm gonna place this. I like just to space them out, just out of habit. And then we're going to change this one to activate on channel 2, this one to activate on channel 3. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Alright, before we start going in and filling in the RNG devices, we're quickly going to put together a target so we can see how it kind of works within these RNG devices. So we're going to quickly grab that tomato head, and then we're going to also grab a trigger. Now I like to resize these about 1 to 2 bigger, because you don't want to go too big to the point where it's going to be awarding players who are missing the shot, but you don't want it to be too small that players are going to be hitting the sides of the tomatoes or whatever your target is, and it's not going to be awarding them a shot hit. So what we're going to be doing next is applying either channel 1, 2, or 3 to this front trigger, and we're going to be doing that in the when triggered transmit on, and we'll just do channel 1 for this first one. And then inside of this tomato or whatever device you're using, you're going to do turn off visibility when receiving from channel 1. Alright, and then the settings on the trigger need to change just a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to do trigger by player off. We are also going to turn trigger by damage on. Then we're going to turn the sound and the VFX off, because even when the trigger is invisible, it still shows the VFX and it looks kind of goofy on screen. Then we're also going to turn visible in game off and receive damage while invisible on. Everything else should be set with the triggers. Now the last thing you need to do is change the setting for turning the visibility on. Now there are a couple of things you do need to change within your devices. Number one, making sure they're set to invulnerable. Then as well, making sure everything is always hidden, because if the beacon or the health bar is on, it's going to make it look pretty ugly when it's on the canvas. Also, make sure you turn visible during games off. That way, when it initially spawns in, you're not going to have every single target up, and then you don't have to go through manually and turn them off individually. Also, make sure the play audio and the VFX is off, and everything else should be set. Now, the turn on visibility relates to what you're going to be putting in here. So for here, I have channel 1, 2, and 3. So that means every channel upwards I have available. So I'm just going to go in order, do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And just go through right in order. So I'm going to lay that out quickly and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright, so I filled in all the triggers on the RNG devices, and now we're going to head over back to our targets where I have 3 now. Now I'm going to change the front here to 2 and this to 3. Now each of these back are going to be changed eventually, but I'm going to start off with number 1. And what we're going to do is basically go ahead and give 4, 5, 6, 7 to individual targets. So all you're going to do is turn on visibility to 4. And then we can just go ahead and copy this and then change this to 5. Oop, make sure we don't grab the RNG device in the background. Add that, and we're going to change that to 6. Now you can do the same things for these. So this is 14 and 15. So we're just going to head and grab that. And then we'll change this to 14. And we'll change this one to 15. And then for the third one, you just do the same thing, but you're going to use 24 and 25. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of the targets real quick, and then I'll be back for you guys yet again. Now I've moved all the targets into here, and I'm going to start putting them up onto the canvas. Now what I recommend is placing whichever ones are in the rows as far away as possible. And when placing them in, I'm just going to quickly rotate this. I like to make sure that it's about half covered. I don't want it to be so deep back that you just see a little bit. So I like to just make sure I have a little bit kind of through that back part. For me, I think this looks the best, and it kind of lets you see more of the target than just the front side of it. But it's pretty much personal opinion, so you can do really whatever you'd like. So now for another one that's with the 1 channel, I'm going to probably place it somewhere down here. That way they're quite far away from each other, and I'm just going to move that out 1. And that way it's more, I guess you could say, more diverse of the placement of each one. So when you shoot this one over here might spawn, and it's better than them spawning directly next to each other. So I'm going to quickly put up all the rest of these, and I'll be back to you guys again once I'm finished with that. Alright, so I got them all on there. I didn't spend as much time as I usually would making sure they're balanced, but you do get the point, and it doesn't really matter too much. It does add to the randomization, but all there's really left to do now is start it and see if we run into any issues. Hopefully nothing really came up, as I'm pretty sure everything was set up smoothly, knock on wood. But let's see what happens. So we have 3 targets off the rip, which is a good sign. And when we shoot one, it gives us a new one. And it seems to be working pretty well. Now, one last thing I'm going to quickly show you guys how to do is set up a mini scoring system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab the score manager here. Now we're going to throw that down, and we're also going to steal a trigger. So what we're going to do is score value. We're going to set that to 1, add, and then we're going to come down to the triggers, and we're going to do activate. Now let's just see what the last trigger we used, 33. So 34 is an open channel. So what we're going to do is we actually can just go ahead and do activate from 34. And then what we're going to do is we're going to basically use this trigger here to reroute channel 1, 2, and 3 to also send an input to here. So we're going to trigger when receiving from 1, and we're going to put that out to 34. And then we're also going to copy this trigger over do channel 2, do channel 3. So now, every time you shoot a target, this gets triggered because you are shooting this front here. Now that's going to activate, give you a new target, but it's also going to send another signal to add 1 to your score. Now, we also need one for when you miss a shot. So, let's do this. We're going to change this to subtract, and then we're going to change this to 35. Oh, did that not save? It did. Guess the visual is just a little slow on there. So we're going to make this bigger. And then I like to make the height of it just a little bit skinnier so it fits in behind the other triggers easier. And then we're going to make this do, when triggered, transmit on 35, right? Yes. And then we're just going to fit that right behind all of these, and we're just going to cover this entire back wall to make sure there's no holes within here that bullets can go through and miss. So we'll go ahead and we're going to cover this entire wall. Alright, so once you have all of your triggers set up to catch your shots missed, make sure you go into the My Island to the UI tab up at the top. Make sure your HUD info type is set to score. Then from there, you can start the game, and then it should, if everything was put together correctly, track your score when you hit shots, and as well once you miss shots as well. So we're going to grab our scar here, and our score is going up by 1 if you look right underneath the mini map. And then if we go ahead and miss some shots, you can see our score is decreasing, which works perfectly. So that way you can set up a timer to track your score and then reset it as soon as, a minute or 30 seconds is up, which is exactly what I did in the aim facility. It's a great way to track for, certain set amount of times, and you can kind of set your goals and what you want to improve upon. It's pretty cool, and there's a lot that you can do with it. What's cool is that it's creative mode, and there's a whole lot of other stuff you can add to pretty much blank Tile Frenzy. For example, last week I released a map that featured some really cool things, such as the fact that it will count how many shots you missed and hit on a little scoreboard. As well, it'll tell you the amount of time it took you to finish it, and it tells you your accuracy percentage. It's something a little bit different from the basic scoring system, but it is something pretty cool. And there's a lot more you can add to this very basic Tile Frenzy that I showed you guys today.